Hey there, everybody. Thanks for joining me for another one-man review. Today I'll be taking a look at Igor Hofbauer's Mr. Morgen out from Conundrum Press. Igor Hofbauer is according to the inside here, this little bit by Nina Bunjevac, a legendary Croatian poster artist. And this book is kind of about Yugoslavia, growing up in Yugoslavia. It's a very surreal take on it, but as you can see by the cover and the art, there's a lot of influence from like early modernist design, including like Alexander Rodchenko's poster art, the Bauhaus type of aesthetic, anything to do with early like constructivism and early socialist poster art. So there's throughout this kind of aesthetic of the Soviet bloc and how it probably affected. I'm by no means a great historian, but I'm assuming Igor Hofbauer grew up somewhere that had kind of like Soviet housing blocks and things like that. And just this whole book is saturated. It's like a David Lynch look at like a depressed ex-Soviet town, the ruins of the town with concrete everywhere. It just kind of has that vibe to it. I wouldn't say that there's a overarching story structure, but there's an overarching atmosphere and there's an overarching environment within which a bunch of these characters have these interlinking set of narratives. And I think if you went back over the book multiple times, you could kind of reconcile that kaleidoscopic view that is really at play here in the intro. So you'll see you get these little pieces of like 3 different stories right out the gate. And then as you go through the introduction, you're getting introduced to all of these other characters. And here you can see the kind of this like brutalist architecture that they're all living under. That's why I'm saying it looks like kind of Soviet bloc apartments and architecture everywhere. And that carries over into the art as well with the black and white and red. But yeah, you get, in the beginning, you get this kaleidoscope image of all the different characters and what their stories are. And then that approach sticks throughout the book, where you kind of just peek in on these characters, and some of them will show up in each other's stories, but really you're getting like a atmospheric taste of a place rather than a story straightforward, straight through and through. I do think you could go find a bunch of more interconnected and put together, like this all happened in 2 days or something like that, but I would have to go back and read it a couple times through in a row probably. So there's a lot of cool formal things, I mean, just in terms of design, but also in terms of comics. Like here you get this first one, each one has a title at the beginning of the short story that seems like a character's name. So this is Bronco, and here you have, I'm assuming this is Bronco, pissing off the bridge, and then underneath the bridge you get all these rats tearing a bird apart, and then you get the piss coming down landing. But the piss also makes the gutter on the panel, and even like, I don't know if this artist knows that term that Scott McCloud uses, but the idea of piss in the gutter is funny to me. So right out the gate I'm like, oh my god, okay, this is really sophisticated comic stuff. So I'm just gonna flip through and kind of show you different images that I like not getting too much into the story. But you can see here this really good use of black and red. So this reminds me a bit of what Eric Creek did on The Exile with the black and red and the kind of woodblock look. You get a lot of that kind of woodblock art in Germany and stuff in the early modernism as well. So you get like just all these layers of resonance with other design traditions and art traditions coming together to make these really powerful. I guess they don't all start with someone's name. A lot of them start with someone's name. But just these really powerful, creepy stories throughout. There's a bit of Charles Burns throughout a lot of this. There's definitely a bit of like some Peter Kuiper. There's just a lot of references to comic artists, some Dan Clowes. Really like this here. Again, the formalisms of like, here's this lady caught in a cage and she's crying, and this guy's in the box watching her. This is like her young enemy here, I believe. Then you get this guy walking up. So the way these arrows are kind of showing these different views of what's going on in this whole scenario. It's a really just interesting way of composing and telling a story. Here I like just a really simple, that you have P and TV, just putting the police in the TV, even though they're both helicopters. So just that kind of iconographic graphic design combination of images and words that you don't always get in comics, but really, really works well in comics. I like seeing that influence here. I almost would have liked to see some of that stuff get pushed further. I think there's a lot of territory to explore between comics and magazine design that I've seen some people do, but not a lot. Here's just some really crazy, grotesque imagery here of this guy slugging along. Don't know what this is, pulling out of here. But this is one of the characters that shows up in a couple of the stories. There's just some really, really good imagery. I really like this paranoid like room here, how this guy's rushing through here. And then also just thought this image here was totally gnarly. Almost like a Michael DeForge little thing, Charles Burns. It's another one of these compositions. Really like these compositions with the apartment blocks here. And the fact that it all flows in one to another, use of shapes throughout. And this does look a bit like a suprematist painting by Kazimir Malevich, but with figures in it. But it has all the same kind of weird gestalt groupings and like diagonals everywhere. So it's really fun to see that aesthetic put to play. The music right here, just all kinds of little things to pick up on. This scene right here, where you have everyone kind of listening to their audio books. The triple images right there is really nice. And then here's another like Charles Burns as nasty scene where they have this character. This is probably the main character in the book. This strange character with these weird like barnacle eyes and nose and mouth, and it spits out this awful stuff onto everyone that turns them into zombies. And then the imagery in that scene gets totally grotesque. I'm not going to go into that. And then here I like this idea of, okay, now that we've got zombies from this spit, and again, this isn't a zombie book. This is just one of the stories in it. It doesn't bear relationship to the total story. But once we get like a zombie book, you kind of have like, you could just do infinite cool compositions of just zombies walking around the busted up world. You know, here you get this modernist architecture going on, almost like a bat cave there, stumbling through the tunnels. Like, you just get so many possible, and these are all sequential here too. I mean, these are all just them walking through this tunnel, but you get so many potential amazing compositions just out of that one idea. And I like the fact that Igor Hofbauer took the time to just have a boatload of zombie compositions and just ran with it. It's like realizing you could have fun with that for pages and pages. Here you see the Alexander Rodchenko really, really clearly, and that type of design especially. You see things get a little weird and kinky in this book. So if you're not into darker content, this isn't the book for you, but I really, really enjoyed this. And then here you get almost like a Dave Mazzucchelli type of Asteros polyp layout. And you get the sense that all of this stuff that has been going on throughout the story is maybe just like a set that someone's playing with, because you get this character here that's bigger than everyone else. And you have all these same kind of like modernist test houses still going on, like in the hills here, but you've got this larger character. This also reminds me of one of the Cities of the Fantastic books. So, the 676 or 667 apparitions of Kiloffer or whatever it is, that kind of orthographic projection or isometric perspective with the characters in it, kind of flowing across the page. I don't know. I just really think there's a lot going on in these compositions that's compelling as well. So it's a beautiful book. It really is. You're leaning into like the surrealist David Lynch type of storytelling, and you just have to accept that and really, really just enjoy the images, enjoy the kind of Kafka-esque little stories along the way. And this paints a really atmospheric picture of what I'm assuming is growing up and living in a really, really impoverished, depressed place that's surrounded by this kind of brutalist, modernist de style architecture. Sorry, I'm just throwing out art words like crazy here, but I feel like the more you know about the art movements in that time period and the utopian ideals that they had, and then you get a book about someone who's grown up in the failure of that utopia using all of those artistic tropes, it adds up to a really powerful picture in my mind. So really thoroughly enjoyed this book. I'll probably want to go back and read it, like I said, maybe 2 times in a row on a nice sitting and really feel like I could unpack the whole thing. But highly recommend this book, Mr. Morgen by Igor Hofbauer. I got it from Partners and Sons, so check them out. If you can't find it online, see if they have it. If you enjoy what we're doing here on the channel and want to support us, there's 2 ways to do it. The first way is through our Patreon. On our Patreon, we have 2 tiers of engagement. The first one gets you early access to all our videos. So 1.5 to 2 months, depending on what's going on at the time, kind of backlog there. Usually you can get early access. Then on the second tier, you get access to our exclusive AI webcomic interactive experience where viewers get to vote, Prane Day. And that's an ongoing thing that you'd have access to, and then early access to previews of what Sean and I are working on with our personal comics work. So we really appreciate that. Any of the money you give just helps us buy the books that we review, so we try and turn it right back into the community. The best way you can support us, Living the Line, is to support what Sean's doing with Living the Line Publishing. So we'll go ahead and take a look at one of his projects now. The Exile by Eric Creek is a gorgeously illustrated Viking saga of revenge. Eric Creek calls it his Viking Western. It's about a guy who's been away on the warpath and is returning home to some family troubles that have to be resolved. And this is told in just this amazing, like, kind of 3-color art style that looks like old woodblock cuts or something. It's absolutely gorgeous book that you've got to pick up. Thanks for following along. Take it away, Jack.
You want to see all these books? Smash that subscribe button and the like button and the bell, and then you get them.